Did you lose it? Did you never have it? Today we're going to talk about performance anxiety-based erectile dysfunction. It's not caused by what you think it is, and it's fixed in a way you would never expect. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, this is really caused ultimately by adrenaline. And I want you to remember that. If you remember nothing else in this video, remember adrenaline, okay? So if this is your erection, this is adrenaline. Adrenaline is the knife in this situation. What do I mean by that? Well, your body has this fight or flight response. It's essentially what's going on here. Think about the fight or flight response. You know, the F word that's not included in that is the FU. I'm not going to finish it on YouTube, but you get my point. Because think about if this was 1,000 years ago and something happened that threatened your life physically, all right? And you had to run from a wild animal or another person or something like that. Do you know what would be really inconvenient at a time like that? In fact, would hamper your athletic performance to either run away or fight? An erection. Your body literally is designed to where when you have certain things going on in your brain, it prevents you from getting an erection. And this starts in a part of your brain called the hypothalamus, which is about the size of an almond, believe it or not. And it simply senses that something is different. And then a lot of times that can be a new person, or it could be a new situation like, I don't know, you're a young man and you're trying to have sex in a college dorm room and maybe you can hear people next door, or you're in a car. But most of the time in my experience, it's a new person. And your body just senses that something is novel and that this is not really the time to relax. You have to be ready to fight or flight. And that hypothalamus sends some signals to your pituitary gland, which releases adrenaline. And adrenaline causes all of these physiological responses that prevent you from getting an erection. I'm not going to go into detail as to what those are. You have ChatGPT, you can find that out on your own later if you want to. But essentially, what you need to understand is that this is not your fault. It's not your fault. And if you're out there and you're a penis receiver and the person you tried to have sex with couldn't get an erection, you might very well think it's because you're not hot, you're not attractive, maybe, I don't know, maybe something smelled weird. I mean, people have all sorts of different sensitivities and things like that. But the truth is, you might have been too hot. You might have just been too hot. And men, if this happened to you, you know, you think about all this alpha male stuff. Maybe you're like red pill guy on YouTube and you watch Andrew Tate and all this kind of stuff. And now you think you're not much of a man because this happened to you. No, this is a primitive response to new stimuli that is really out of your hands in terms of being able to control it. And it's really important to me that you understand that you're okay and that this is completely normal. In fact, it's so normal that in certain circumstances, it's really to be expected. But there's some things that we can do to solve it. Let's talk about those right now. Now, I am not a psychiatrist, but I am slightly familiar with this idea of exposure therapy, which is essentially where you expose yourself to stimuli that's making you a little unsettled until it just no longer bothers you as much, right? Exposure therapy. Imagine you've never ridden a horse before. You are undoubtedly going to be nervous the first time you get on that horse. But, you know, your 30th, 40th, 50th horseback ride, it's not going to bother you whatsoever. That's exposure therapy. Same thing, you get a new job. I mean, there's all sorts of things. You've all experienced exposure therapy numerous times. The problem here is that let's say, you know, if it's a new girlfriend and it's going to be a long-term relationship or a new boyfriend or whoever you're trying to insert your penis into, then exposure therapy, yeah, it's probably going to work because the second date, the third date, you've spent more time with this person, you're more comfortable. You probably won't have this problem anymore. But if you're going from date to date to date, in other words, if you kind of continuously have new people in your life and this is happening to you, then the inverse can happen as well, where essentially every time you're in a situation like this, especially if you've had ED once or twice or 3 times, you may just start thinking about it all the time, right? Like, well, it didn't work last time or the time before that. I really hope it happens tonight. And that is almost a guarantee that it's not going to. But that's exposure therapy. Now let's talk about the medication side of things. Now, I own a telemedicine company with a whole team of physicians, and we offer these medications. And you might think that this is self-serving. Potentially, you can think that all you want, but I just like to share this information because I think every guy has been in this situation, myself included. So let's go ahead and talk about it. A lot of people mistakenly think that ED medications like sildenafil, like tadalafil, will do nothing if your erectile dysfunction is mental. That is completely not true. In fact, there's even an ICD diagnosis code for this. It's called psychogenic erectile dysfunction. So if you want to look this up yourself, go on ChatGPT and put in, performance anxiety or psychogenic ED, sildenafil, etc. You can find all the data on this. There are tons and tons of studies showing that these PDE5 inhibitors, Viagra, Cialis, sildenafil, tadalafil, etc., really, really help almost every man in this situation. Almost every man. Because you still have that adrenaline response, but those drugs amplify all the physiological responses required to get an erection. And so the two kind of battle it out, the adrenaline versus the PDE5 inhibitor, trying to help your body get an erection, because you do want to get an erection, and most of the time you truly are aroused. So I'm not going to show you too much of the data right now. I'll just put a couple on the screen. But basically, there's a lot of clinical trials out there, or studies anyway, that show a great deal of response with this. And they're not physiologically addictive. So you can take a PDE5 inhibitor like a sildenafil, first few dates with somebody, you no longer have this issue, great, stop taking them. It's a reason why you shouldn't sign up for a subscription to get PDE5 inhibitors. You may not actually need that many of them, and you don't want to get ripped off. Now, something else I want to tell you about that we don't offer is something known as a beta blocker. And I am not a physician myself, and this is not medical advice. I'm just going to tell you what I know about them, but it's general information, okay? Beta blockers, like the drug propranolol, essentially block your body's ability to absorb, for lack of a better word, this adrenaline. So your body's still releasing adrenaline, but your body's not getting that adrenaline response. And there's not been any true studies on this in terms of psychogenic ED, but it just stands to reason that if adrenaline is causing this problem, that these drugs may well help. And anecdotally, even though we don't offer it, I certainly have a lot of friends that have used this very thing to great success. But I have to warn you, and I'm not a physician and I'm not a pharmacist. I'm a guy who owns a telemedicine company, and I work with a lot of these people, but it's not me, and this is not medical advice, okay? I have been told by numerous doctors and numerous pharmacies to never, ever, not ever take a beta blocker like propranolol with a PDE5 inhibitor like sildenafil or tadalafil, because it can lower your blood pressure too much. So if you're going to try one of these medications, and if you already have a prescription for something like a Viagra, Cialis, etc., I would personally be very explicit with my doctor, and I would say, doctor, I plan on taking this propranolol with my sildenafil. Is that okay? I would be that explicit with them, because sometimes while doctors do have access to all the medication that you're on, I don't know that they always put two and two together when they have their back to you and they're frantically typing on their computer. Word to the wise, I have heard that that mixture can be not safe for everybody. Well, that's it for me, guys. The main thing here is adrenaline, that it's essentially unavoidable. It's as much of part of being human, or being alive, as your heart beating. It is a physiological response to your brain sensing something new. And so therefore, if you have a new partner, you may well have erectile dysfunction. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But there are some things that you can do, including sildenafil, including tadalafil, which obviously millions of people around the world have used for this very reason with great success. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it.